Once upon a time, in New York, New Jersey, lived a boy who one day became the famous comedian, host of mixed martial arts, and famous podcaster of all time, known as Joe Rogan. But how did Joe Rogan become a celebrity? Why did he become a celebrity? Does he really have the degree on his hands and feet? And is it true at the age of 19, he won the U.S. Open Championship Taekwondo tournament as a lightweight? Did Wesley Snipes really challenge Joe Rogan to a cage fight? And is it true that he accused comedian Dan Cook of joke thievery? And is it also true that Joe Rogan is now making over $100 million with his Spotify deal? It's time for me to answer all these questions and more, since this is Aaron, back at it again with another daily video to help you relax. So lay back and enjoy the ride. I hope this read helps you get you through your day, or even better, I hope this video helps you gently fall asleep. I can't wait to get started. This is the tale of Joe Rogan.
Joseph James Rogan was born on August 11, 1967, in Newark, New Jersey. His grandfather had moved his family there in the 1940s. He is of 3/4 Italian and 1/4 Irish descent. His father, Joseph, is a former police officer in Newark. Rogan's parents divorced when he was 5. He has not been in contact with his father since he was 7. Rogan recalled, "All I remember of my dad are these brief, violent flashes of domestic violence. But I don't want to complain about my childhood. Nothing bad ever really happened to me. I don't hate the guy." From ages 7 to 11, the family lived in San Francisco, California, followed by a move to Gainesville, Florida when he was 11. They settled in Newton Upper Falls, Massachusetts, where Rogan attended Newton South High School and graduated in 1985. Rogan participated in Little League Baseball, but developed an interest in martial arts in his early teens. He recalled being terrified of being a loser as a child, and martial arts gave me not just confidence, but also a different perspective of myself and what I was capable of. I knew that I could do something I was terrified of, and that was really difficult, and that I could excel at it. It was a big deal for me. Martial arts was the first thing that ever gave me hope that I wasn't going to be a loser, so I really gravitated toward it. At 14, Rogan took up karate, and a year later started Taekwondo. At 19, he won the U.S. Open Championship Taekwondo tournament as a lightweight. He was a Massachusetts full-contact state champion for 4 consecutive years and became a Taekwondo instructor. Rogan also practiced amateur kickboxing and held a 2-1 record. He retired from competition at 21 as he began to suffer from frequent headaches and feared worse injuries. He attended University of Massachusetts Boston, but found it pointless and dropped out early. He lived in the Boston area until he was 24, then moved to New York City. Rogan had no intention of being a professional stand-up comedian and initially considered a career in kickboxing. He was a fan of comedy as a youngster, and his parents took him to see comedian Richard Pryor's film Live on the Sunset Strip, which affected him in such a profound way. Nothing had made me laugh like that. Rogan's friends at his gym and taekwondo school convinced him to have a go at stand-up comedy, as he would make jokes and do impressions to make them laugh. At 21, after 6 months preparing material and practicing his delivery, he performed his first stand-up routine on August 27, 1988, at an open mic night at Stitch's Comedy Club in Boston. While he worked on his stand-up, Rogan took up several jobs to secure himself financially by teaching martial arts at Boston University and Revere, Massachusetts, delivering newspapers, driving a limousine, doing construction work, and completing duties for a private investigator. His blue comedy style earned him gigs at bachelor parties and strip clubs. One night, Rogan convinced the owner of a comedy club in Boston to allow him to try a new 5-minute routine. At the show was talent manager Jeff Sussman, who liked Rogan's act and offered to become his manager, which Rogan accepted. In 1990, Rogan moved to New York City as a full-time comedian. He was scratching and grinding for money at the time and stayed with his grandfather in Newark for the first 6 months. Rogan later cited Richard Jeni, Lenny Bruce, Sam Kinison, and Bill Hicks as comedy influences. In 1994, Rogan relocated to Los Angeles, where his first national television spot followed on the MTV comedy show Half Hour Comedy Hour. The appearance led to the network offering him a 3-year exclusive contract and a role in a pilot episode of a dopey game show for $500. Rogan declined, but it prompted Sussman to send tapes of Rogan's performances to several networks, which sparked a bidding war. After a period of negotiation, Rogan accepted a development deal with the Disney Network. He secured his first major acting role in the 1994 9-episode Fox sitcom Hardball as Frank Valenti, a young, egocentric star player on a professional baseball team. Rogan called the hiring process weird, as the network had no idea if he could act until he was asked by Dean Valentine, then president of Walt Disney Television, to which he replied, "If you can lie, you can act. And if you can lie to crazy girlfriends, you can act under pressure." The filming schedule was a new experience for Rogan, who started to work 12-hour days and among people. Rogan later said, "It was a great show on paper until a horrible executive producer with a big ego was hired by Fox to run the show and he rewrote it." Around this time, Rogan began performing at the Comedy Store in Hollywood and became a paid regular by owner Mitzi Shore. He performed at the club for the next 13 years for free and paid for the venue's new sound system. From 1995 to 1999, Rogan starred in the NBC sitcom News Radio as Joe Gorelli, an electrician and handyman at the show's fictional news radio station. The role was originally set to be played by actor Ray Romano. Romano was let go from the cast after one rehearsal, and Rogan was brought in. The switch caused Rogan to work with the show's writers to help develop the character before the show was set to launch, which he later described as a very dumbed-down, censored version of himself. Rogan befriended fellow cast member Phil Hartman, who confided his marital problems to him. Rogan claimed he tried to persuade Hartman to divorce his wife 5 times, but he loved his kids and didn't want to leave. In 1998, Hartman was murdered by his wife. The loss affected Rogan's ability to perform stand-up, and he canceled a week of scheduled gigs. Rogan later saw acting as an easy job, but grew tired of playing the same character every week, and only did so for the money. He later viewed his time on news radio as a dream gig that allowed him to earn money while working on his stand-up as often as he could. During the series, he worked on a pilot for a show entitled Overseas. Rogan began working for the mixed martial arts promotion Ultimate Fighting Championship as a backstage and post-fight interview. His first show took place at UFC 12, Judgment Day in Dothan, Alabama, on February 7, 1997. He became interested in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in 1994 after watching Royce Gracie fight at UFC 2, No Way Out, and landed the position at the organization as Sussman was friends with its co-creator and original producer Campbell McLaren. He quit after around 2 years as his salary could not cover the cost of traveling to the events, which were in more rural locations at the time. After the UFC was taken over by Zuffa in 2001, Rogan attended some events and became friends with its new president, Dana White, who offered him a job as a color commentator, but Rogan initially declined as he just wanted to go to the fights and drink. In 2002, White was able to hire Rogan for free in exchange for prime event tickets for him and his friends. After about 15 free gigs as commentator, Rogan accepted pay for the job, working alongside Mike Goldberg until the end of 2016. Rogan won the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Award for Best Television Announcer twice, and was named MMA Personality of the Year 4 times by the World MMA Awards. In 1999, Rogan secured a 3-album deal with Warner Brothers, and began tentative plans to star in his own primetime television sitcom on Fox named The Joe Rogan Show. The show, co-written by Seinfeld writer Bill Masters, was to feature Rogan as a second-string sportscaster who lands a spot as the token male on a View-style women's show. In December 1999, he recorded his first stand-up comedy album in 2 shows at the Comedy Connection at Faneuil Hall in Boston, which was released as I'm Gonna Be Dead Someday in August 2000. It received national exposure on The Howard Stern Show and downloads from Napster. Voodoo Punani, a song Rogan wrote after Warner suggested to produce a song that could play on the radio, was subsequently released as a single. Around this time, Rogan also worked on ideas for a film and a cartoon with his comedian friend Chris McGuire, and began to operate a blog on his website, joerogan.net, which he used to discuss various topics that helped him develop his stand-up routines. In 2001, development on Rogan's television show was interrupted after he accepted an offer from NBC to host the American edition of Fear Factor. He declined initially, as he thought the network would not air such a program due to its content, but Sussman convinced him to accept. Rogan later said that he accepted mainly to obtain observations and anecdotes for his stand-up comedy. The show increased Rogan's national exposure, which caused turnouts at his stand-up gigs to grow. Fear Factor ran for an initial 6 seasons, from 2001 to 2006. Rogan's role as host of Fear Factor led to further television opportunities. In 2002, he appeared on the episode A Beautiful Mind of Just Shoot Me as Chris, the boyfriend of lead character Maya Gallo. In December 2002, Rogan was the MC for the 2002 blockbuster Hollywood Spectacular, a Christmas parade in Hollywood. In February 2003, Rogan became the new co-host of The Man Show on Comedy Central for its 5th season from August 2003, with fellow comedian Doug Stanhope, following the departure of original hosts Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla. A year into the show, however, the hosts entered disagreements with Comedy Central and the show's producers over content. Rogan recalled, "I was a little misled. I was told, show nudity and we'll blur it out. Swear and we'll bleep it out. That hasn't been the case." The show ended in 2004, around the time Rogan entered into talks to host his own radio show, but they came to nothing due to his already busy schedule. In 2005, actor Wesley Snipes challenged Rogan to a cage fight. Rogan trained for the event for 5 months before Snipes backed out following an investigation by the IRS for his alleged tax evasion. Rogan believed Snipes needed a quick payout to alleviate his debt. After Fear Factor, Rogan focused his career on his stand-up comedy, as concentrating on television had made him feel lazy and uninspired to work on new material for his act. With money he had earned from television, Rogan hired 2 people full-time to film him and his comedy friends on tour and release clips on his website for his Joe Show web series. In May 2005, Rogan signed a deal with the Endeavor Talent Agency. 2 months later, he filmed his second stand-up comedy special, Joe Rogan Live in Phoenix, Arizona. The special premiered on Showtime in 2007. In 2005, Rogan wrote a blog entry on his website accusing comedian Carlos Mencia of joke thievery, a claim he had made since 1993, and dubbed him Carlos Menstelia. The situation culminated in February 2007 when Rogan confronted Mencia on stage at the Comedy Store in Hollywood. A video of the incident was uploaded onto YouTube and included evidence and comments from other comedians, including George Lopez, the Reverend Bob Levy, Bobby Lee, and Ari Shaffir. The incident led to Rogan's talent agent expelling him as a client of the Verge agency, who also managed Mencia, and has been banned from the Comedy Store, causing him to relocate his regular venue to the Hollywood Improv Comedy Club. Rogan later said that every single comic he had talked to was so happy and thankful he did it. He signed with William Morris Agency 5 minutes later. Rogan returned to the Comedy Store in 2013 to support Shaffir in the filming of his first special. In April 2007, Comedy Central Records released Rogan's fourth comedy special, Shiny Happy Jihad. The set was recorded in September 2006 at Cobb's Comedy Club in San Francisco and contains excerpts of an improvised Q&A session with the audience that was typical of Rogan's act at the time. Rogan hosted short-lived CBS game show In My Head that aired for 8 episodes in January 2009 and produced by Ashton Kutcher. The show involved contestants who try to convince people to perform or take part in increasingly bizarre situations for money. He agreed to host the show as the idea intrigued him, calling it a completely mindless form of entertainment. In December 2009, Rogan launched a free podcast with his friend and fellow comedian Brian Redban. The first episode was recorded on December 24th and was initially a live weekly broadcast on Ustream, with Rogan and Redban sitting in front of laptops bullshitting. By August 2010, the podcast was named The Joe Rogan Experience and entered the list of top 100 podcasts on iTunes, and in 2011 was picked up by SiriusXM satellite radio. The podcast features an array of guests who discuss current events, political views, philosophy, comedy, hobbies, and numerous other topics. In January 2015, the podcast was downloaded over 11 million times. By October that year, the podcast was downloaded 16 million times each month, making it one of the most popular free podcasts. In 2010, Rogan accused comedian Dane Cook of joke thievery. In 2011, Rogan resumed his role as Fear Factor host for its 7th and final season until 2012. Rogan took the job as he would hate to see somebody else do it. In 2011, Rogan played his first major character in a movie in Zookeeper. He was also working on a book that he tentatively titled Irresponsible Advice from a Man with No Credibility, based on his blog entries on his website. He played himself in Here Comes the Boom, another action comedy starring Kevin James released in 2012. In December 2012, Rogan released his 6th comedy special, Live from the Tabernacle, exclusively as a download on his website for $5. He was inspired to release it that way after Louis C.K. did the same thing. In 2013, Rogan hosted the television show Joe Rogan Questions Everything on the Sci-Fi Network, which aired for 6 episodes. The show covered topics discussed on his podcasts, including the existence of Bigfoot and UFOs, and featured several comedians, experts, and scientists, with the aim of trying to put subjects to bed with an open-minded perspective. Sci-Fi accepted to produce the show without a pilot episode. The production team gave Rogan some creative control over the program and aimed to present it in his own words where possible. Rogan married Jessica Ditzel, a former cocktail waitress, in 2009. They have 2 daughters. The first was born in 2008, and the second in 2010. Rogan is also a stepfather to Ditzel's daughter from a previous relationship. The family lived in Boulder, Colorado, before they relocated to Bell Canyon, California, where Rogan had lived following early 2003. They purchased a new home in the area for almost $5 million in mid-2018. He has vitiligo on his hands and feet. Rogan became interested in jiu-jitsu after watching Royce Gracie fight at UFC 2, No Way Out, in 1994. In 1996, Rogan began training in Brazilian jiu-jitsu under Carlson Gracie at the school in Hollywood. He He was a black belt under Eddie Bravo's 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, a style of no-gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and a black belt in gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Jean-Jacques Machado. Rogan was raised Catholic, having attended Catholic school in first grade, but has since abandoned following any organized religion and identifies as agnostic. He is highly critical of the Catholic Church and, drawing from his experiences as a former member, believes it is an institution of oppression. In October 2019, during an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Rogan confirmed that he is a cousin of My Chemical Romance lead vocalist Gerard Way, although they have never met. And so ends the tale of the famous comedian, podcast host, and mixed martial arts color commentator Joe Rogan, who lived happily ever after, entertaining fans because that's what he loves to do.